This time, there was no smoke blocking the door, even though there were 3 people, I guess people, in the elevator smoking. I know it don't make sense, but stay with me. And there he was, clear as day as the door slid open. Recognized him instantly. Been waiting for him since I was 3. Mikey Holloman. My father. 9:08 a.m. My pop stepped in the elevator, stood right in front of me, stared as if looking at his own reflection, as if he'd stepped into a time machine. Moments later, spread his arms, welcomed me into a lifetime's worth of squeeze. Is it possible for a hug to peel back skin of time, the toughened and raw bits, the irritated and irritating dry spots, the parts that bleed? Pop pulled away, noticed his brother, gave Uncle Mark a firm handshake, yanked him in for a half hug, just like on all the pictures. No sound in the elevator except hands popping together and the muted thud of pats on backs. I have no memories of my father. Sean always tried to get me to remember things like Pop dressing up as Michael Jackson for Halloween and after trick-or-treating, riding us up and down on this elevator, doing his best moonwalk, but not enough space to go nowhere, slamming into walls. Sean swore I laughed so hard I farted, stunk up the whole elevator, even peed myself. I was only 3, and I don't remember that. I've always wanted to. But I don't. I so don't. A broken heart killed my dad. That's what my mother always said. And as a kid, I always figured his heart was for real broken like an arm or a toy or the middle drawer. But that's not what Sean said. Sean always said our dad was killed for killing the man who killed our uncle. Said he was at a payphone probably talking to Mom when a guy walked up on him, put pistol to head, asked him if he knew a guy who went by G. Don't know what Pop said, but that was the end of that story. I always used to ask Sean how he knew that, especially the whole G thing. He said Buck told him. Said that was Buck's corner. It was then that Buck started looking out for Sean, who at the time was only 7. Buck was 16. But I don't remember none of this either. How, Will? My father's voice, brand new to me. Deep. Some scratch on the tail of each word. How I figured Sean's would have sounded someday. How you been? Weird talking to my dad like he was a stranger, even though we hugged like family. All right, I guess, I said, unsure of what else to say. How do you small talk your father when dad is a language so foreign that whenever you try to say it, it feels like you got a third lip and a second tongue? I wanted to unload. Just tell him about Sean and how Mom cried and drank and scratched herself to sleep. How I was feeling, the rules, all that. Wanted to tell him everything in that stuffy elevator, but held back because Buck, Danny, and Uncle Mark were watching with warm, weird faces. I already know, Pop said, taking a deep breath. I know. Sadness and love in his voice. I replied, choking down me, choking up. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, knuckles rolling over my eyes to catch water before it came down. No crying. Not in front of Pop. Not in front of Danny. Not in front of none of these people. Not in front of no one. Never. What you think you should do, he asked. Follow the rules, I said, just like I told everybody else. Just like you did. Pop gave Uncle Mark a look when Uncle Mark asked if I had ever heard my father's story. Of course, I said. He was killed at a payphone. Worry washed over Pop's face, opened his mouth to speak, but changed his mind, then changed his mind again. That's not the story we talking about. What you know is how I was killed, Pop explained. But you don't know. You just don't know. 9:08 a.m. When Mark was shot, I was shattered, shifted, never the same again, like shards of my own heart shivving me on the inside, just like your mama told you. You and Sean were little, and I couldn't just come home and be a daddy and a husband when I couldn't be a brother no more. Not after what happened and how it happened. But I didn't cry, didn't snitch, knew exactly who killed Mark, and knew I could get him. The rules, taught to me by Mark, taught to him by our pop. That night I walked 2 blocks to where Mark used to move, where dirt was done, and waited until finally a dude came from a building, stepped to his corner, Mark's corner, slapped a pack in a customer's clutch. Money was exchanged, and I knew that was my guy, the guy that shot my brother dead in the street. I made my move, hood over my head, gun from my waist, and by the time he saw me, I was already squeezing. Pop, 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 and by the third, he was down. But I gave him one more just because I was angry. So angry, like something had gotten into me. That something that my pop said had gotten into him must be what my mom meant by the nighttime. Pop said he took off running so fast his sneakers barely touched concrete. Said he took the long way, turned pistol into poof, turned bang bang into hush hush. When I got home, I took a hot shower, hot enough to burn the skin off my body, he said. Couldn't kiss your mother. Couldn't kiss you boys goodnight. Just lay naked in the scummy bathtub, the cold porcelain keeping me from sleep, from nightmares. But you did what you had to do, I said, after listening to my father admit what I had already known. The rules are the rules. Uncle Mark and my father looked at me with hollow eyes, dancing somewhere between guilt and grief, which I couldn't make sense of until my father admitted that he had killed the wrong guy. You ain't killed G? I asked, confused. No, I did, Pop confirmed, his voice crumbling. But G didn't kill Mark. G was just some young kid trying to be tough, trying to make a few friends, a few bucks, a flunky for the guy who killed Mark, he explained. Then why you kill him? I asked. I didn't know he wasn't the right guy, Pop said, a tremble in his throat. I was sure that was Mark's killer. Had to be. I leaned against the wall next to Danny, thinking, staring at my father who wasn't my father at all. At least, not like I had imagined him. A man who moved with precision, patience, purpose, not no willy-nilly bucking off at randoms at random. Spent my whole damn life missing a misser. And that disappointed me. And he stood on the other side of the elevator, staring back at me, wasn't sure what he was thinking. Maybe that I was exactly how he had imagined. Maybe that disappointed him. Random thought number 4. There's this thing I used to see kids at the playground do with their dads. They'd stand on their father's feet, the dads holding the kids by the arms, walking stiff-legged like zombies. The kids had to trust the fathers to guide them because the fathers could see what was coming. But the kids, holding tight to their dads, moved blindly, backward. 9:08 a.m. Then Pop made the first move. A step forward. I made the next. Then he took another. We met in the middle. Again, dove into each other. This time the hug, a mix of I miss you and who are you, and I'm confused and I'm cracking and I don't know what the hell to do or where the hell to go. My father's hand gripped my back as I did my best to bury myself in his armpit. to get lost in the new and strangely familiar feeling of fatherhood. And that's when it happened. He pulled the gun from my waistband and put it to my head. I freaked out. "What you doing?" I shrilled in shock. "What the hell you doing?" Eye to eye, a tear streaming down his face. Just one, so it ain't really count. Chest aching like a weight crushing me, biscuit tight against my temple. He cocked it, sounded like a door closing. I called out for help, but couldn't see no one. Not Uncle Mark or Danny or Buck, or hear them, or even smell the dank of tobacco turning to tar. Like it was suddenly just the two of us, me and my dad, both of us apparently losing our minds. Pop stood over me, the gun pressed against the side of my face. It was the first time I had ever had one to my head. First time I had been that close to death, to the end, and at the hand of Pop. Pop? Pop. You would think I would be thinking about whether or not he could actually do it since he wasn't real. But the hugs were real, and the gun was real. Were no ghost bullets in that clip. Those were real bullets. 15 total, one for every year of my life. My stomach was aching, the quaking world in the bottom of it. And it wasn't long before I could feel myself splitting apart. A warm sensation ran through the lower half of my body, seeping down my leg into my sneakers. Cigarette smoke cut once again, this time by the smell of my own piss. 9:08 a.m. Then Pop uncocked the gun, wrapped his arms around me again, squeezed tight like I was some rag doll, stuffed the gun back into my waistband. I screamed, pushed him away, yelled until my throat stripped, until my words became sizzle, weak, wet, worried about looking like a punk-ass kid. And my father leaned against the wall, staring, chin up, cocky, quiet, while I exploded. And like old times, Uncle Mark came to his side like a brother, pulled the extra cig, the one tucked behind his ear, handed it to my father, chest heaving, eyes on me. He threw the cig in his mouth. Buck took his cue. I backed into a corner, wished this stupid elevator would get to L, for this whole thing to hurry up and be done. Buck struck a match, and the elevator came to a stop.